Bam! MC is in the house. Give you guys a second to jump on. I might have to change where I got this camera. It's a little annoying. All right, I'm bringing up some stats here. Let me know if there's something you want me to address specifically. But I just want to give another overview, tell people what's going on, tell people where my head is with all of this. I also got an exercise that you guys could start doing with your own tribes, your families, your groups, to start building up strength. I'll be touching on that. And let me see. All right, the numbers as it stands right now with coronavirus testing in the U.S., 2.8 million people total tested and 572,000. It comes out to about 20% of the people who have gotten a test have been positive. The world numbers, and it doesn't give me the world numbers for total tested around the world, but so I just have to go by the U.S. with this. But I will say, whereas 20% of the people tested in the U.S. tested positive, now just remember all the criteria that, the screening process that people need to get in order to get tested. Out of all those people who have qualified under those somewhat stringent screening criteria, only 20% actually tested positive. And this out of the total people that have been tested in the U.S. And if we look at the world data, and this is my one go-to stat right now is in terms of priorities, it's the active cases worldwide that have been accumulated and the percentage of mild condition to serious or critical. And right now, out of the currently infected, 1.3 million currently infected, 96% of the people who have tested positive, who are currently positive, 96% of them have a mild condition. So that's either, I imagine, asymptomatic or very mild symptoms. 4% of those are serious or critical, right? So if you just go by the total amount of testing in the U.S., only 20% of the people who have been tested, and these aren't random samples that are being tested. These are people who have met the stringent criteria of screening that a lot of testing centers have because of, the lack of tests. Excuse me. So out of all those people that have passed that and have been tested, only 20% of them tested positive. And although there is no specific mild to serious critical breakdown for U.S. numbers I'm on worldometers.info. In the world stage right now, I think very valuable stat, 96% of the people who are currently infected, 96% of the people who are currently infected are in what's called a mild condition. Now, I have to speculate. I don't know exactly the criteria that this particular site is using to make the distinction between mild condition, 96%, and serious or critical, 4%. I would speculate that serious or critical would be in need of hospitalization and, intensive care beyond that, right? I guess that would be critical, right? So Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of Britain, for example, he had mild symptoms, then he escalated to serious, got critical, now he de-escalated in symptoms, and he's actually out of the hospital. But out of the people who have them right now, 96% worldwide are mild. So a bunch of stuff going on. Let me bring up this. I'm bringing up the live feed here because I can never see the questions that people are putting there. So let me just check in with everybody. What's up, Ricardo? What's up, John? Big Mike. What's up, Jim? Brian James, thanks for doing these updates, brother. Lots of people on all sides of this issue need to hear a sensible breakdown. I appreciate it. As always, you've always been supportive. I always appreciate that. Jim said, in Connecticut, a baby just died and the governor said it was COVID. It wasn't the cause. It wasn't the cause. They want to politicize it. Well, that's what you're getting right now, right? So there was a senator, and let me not just, if I don't have to be, ambiguous or general or abstract, let me not be. So Scott Jensen, right, Minnesota senator, went on a talk show and said, he's a practicing doctor, and said that he was given, let me see if I could, boom, boom, boom. All right, this is off of a citypages.com, which is just commenting on the video. So it's not like this is a source. They're actually sourcing the Fox video and the interview. This is just the first thing I found. Jensen's opinion on the subject tends to carry more weight than most lawmakers. He happens to be a family physician in Watertown. That experience is why Jensen's clashed with some of his fellow Republican colleagues over, say, outlawing conversion therapy or providing emergency insulin. His beef with the death guidelines, in simple terms, and this is referring to COVID-19, and this is an active senator who was also a practicing doctor who went on talk shows and said that he got some pretty weird information as to how he was supposed to classify deaths, COVID-19 deaths, right? So that's what this is talking about. His beef with the death guidelines, in simple terms, is he feels they're too squishy about designating COVID-19 as a cause of death. Ideally, the guidelines say testing for COVID-19 should be conducted, but it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate without this confirmation if the circumstances are compelling within a reasonable degree of certainty. These deaths would be designated as probable or presumed cases in Minnesota, which so far reported some of the lowest rates of transmission and death in any U.S. state. In short, it's ridiculous, he told Fox News on Thursday. The idea that we're going to allow people to massage and game the numbers is a real issue. The public's trust in politicians is already wearing thin. So, he is the one now who is providing a little bit of behind-the-curtain information as to how the presentation of this scenario, the COVID-19 scenario, is skewing, is being used to and leveraged to manipulate public perception. And, I've been, I'm the guy that makes the Pressure Project. I'm the guy that talks about pressure to power. I talk about tribe. I talk about all these different things. And it's been this scenario, these set of circumstances that have started with the coronavirus epidemic that have really brought a lot of those things to light. You have now a vulnerability not only in people's health, literally, these are the people that are succumbing to this virus, but the integrity of one's very identity is being called into question. Because look at how easily it is to scare people into betraying their friends, neighbors. You see all around the country, people being arrested for being outdoors. People, there was one guy on a paddleboard that was like arrested by the Coast Guard. People being dragged off of public transportation because they don't have the proper masks, as if these homemade masks. Now, remember I told you last week, if you will remember, I said these masks are absolutely fucking useless. But why are they giving people these masks? 2 reasons, I said. You can go back to a video last week and check it out. I said the first reason is they're giving people a false sense of control, something to focus on, right? Everybody is so scared, so nervous. They're having all these fucking existential, crises, and they don't know how to respond. They don't know how to react. So, okay, I'm going to make a mask. I'm going to put it on. And you see all the people who are making the masks, and it's all over social media. Yeah, great job. You're putting t-shirt on people's faces. I get it. Your heart's in the right place, but it's still fucking useless. So that's the first thing. The second thing that it's doing is it's starting to now get society prepared to have masks as the norm, right? So now all it took was those CDC guidelines who, after sharing them, the president said, I'm not following them, right? So the president, he's so concerned about this that immediately he went against it because it's fucking ridiculous. You know, anybody that thinks that there's no difference, or, you know, any little bit helps, you know, it's better than nothing. Like, that is very weak type of thinking. It's better than nothing. Well, is it significantly better than nothing? Because there is a cost for this thing that you say is better than nothing. There's a cost for it. And that cost, you know, is significant in some cases. When you see guys, I went to a rest stop, just like I said I would the other day. I had to gas up in Jersey, and I saw the sign outside the store that, you know, all customers need to have masks. I didn't listen to it. I walked right in. And when I walked in, now these are people who a couple of days prior to this, you know, it would have been no big deal. When I walked into this store, and it's important that I share the sort of control experience because it was still me and my face and everything walking in. Everybody was normal before. I walked in the other day after the CDC guidelines of mandating that, or not mandating, encouraging people to have, to wear face masks, and then the governor of New Jersey mandating that in all businesses you have to wear a mask. All it took was a little bit of legislation, and suddenly I became perceived as a greater threat where the virus was concerned. I walked into this store, and when I tell you, it was like I was fucking glowing red in front of these people. There were people, as I was walking down aisles in the store, who were like butting themselves up against the merchandise, against the shelves where the merchandise is, to sort of give themselves more space for me. And it was just a fucking disgusting display of how people are so easily led and manipulated. Now, it's not a surprise. Like I said, I'm the guy who's been talking about building up personal strength and identity and tribe for years now publicly, you know, a lot longer than that privately, right, in my own life. But now we see how these things are starting to form. The end game strategies of the people who are leveraging these things is starting to appear. Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist, right? I'm not somebody who says, you know, I have a hunch that this integral part of a puzzle that there's no evidence for, I have a hunch that it's there just because that hunch will allow me to say that this whole other thing exists. You know, that's not how I'm thinking. I do, however, acknowledge that there have been plenty of conspiracies revealed after the fact to know that the government right now is not something that should be completely trusted. I also know that experts who are consulting our president and people in elected positions of power, I also know that these people tend to be rule followers. They tend to not provide a context that at the sort of end user's application is valuable. They're not going to give advice for how to make the country better. If you ask a doctor how to deal with this disease, he's going to give you the advice of how to deal with the disease. He's not taking into consideration any other function or context, you know, where as we are as citizens, our need is certainly not limited to what a doctor is going to say we should be doing. Our needs, right, our demands in some cases, far exceed the very limited in scope, perspective, and context of a doctor, right? So if you look on the Justin Garcia page, where I'm on right now, on the cover page, I did an illustration for the prep zone, right? And it talks about this sort of preparation zone where you are functional and you can escalate your level of preparation. You can become better prepared. But there's a certain point of diminishing returns where you pass a line of function into paranoia, right? The other line of function on the bottom end of that is unpreparedness, right? So being unprepared. Being unprepared or being paranoid are both dysfunctional. In this area in between, though, we call that the prep zone. And it goes from being unprepared, you pass that line of function, you become functional, and you start increasing your level of preparation. You keep increasing that until you reach the next line of function, which is the threshold to paranoia, right? So you only have that zone. Well, a doctor is going to give you functional advice on how to deal with the virus. The doctor is going to give you highly prepared functional advice on how to deal with the virus. But as soon as you take that advice and you change it from how to deal with the virus to how to heal the country, how to put the country in its best possible position, his advice becomes paranoia almost instantly because it does not take into consideration the greater context of all factors involved in making the decision that elected leaders are charged with making. Okay, Dr. Fauci, I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's doing us harm. I don't think his intentions are to do us harm. I'm sort of indifferent to that whole thing. My position is fuck him because the fucking idiot is going around on news stations giving out advice or giving out feedback that is populating the arguments to counter the president. Whether you supported the president or not, I mean, if you don't support him at this point, you're a fucking piece of shit as far as I'm concerned. Because he's kind of got a lot on his plate right now. He's kind of been doing pretty well compared to other countries when you factor in that we're not authoritative, totalitarian regimes that could just tell everybody stay in the house or we'll fucking shoot you. Or we're not a communist country that, could have, arguably now they're saying 2 million people potentially dead and they could say it's 80,000 or whatever. Considering the fact that we have a country that follows a constitution and a Bill of Rights, unlike any other country in the world, our president's pretty much doing a fucking solid job. But whether you support him or not, Fauci is a part of his administration's, President Trump's administration's effort to combat this situation. At no point should he be out giving interviews where he is giving the people who are obsessed. They talk about Trump derangement syndrome. These people are obsessed. It is a psychosis that is shared by these people, that they will do anything, including sabotaging our sort of navigation through this pandemic. They will completely fucking just shoot ourselves in the foot just to get at Trump. And Fauci's out there giving interviews where he's saying, obviously if we did more earlier, we would have a better control. In which, you say, well, that's just fucking logic. That's just him, naively or ignorantly giving a soundbite to the left's media to use because now they're going to play that soundbite. But then he said on top of that there was a lot of pushback, right? And he didn't cite who was giving. Obviously, he's saying that Trump and the people in Trump's administration that are against him, Peter Navarro being one of them, he's saying that there was a lot of pushback about closing down the country. Well, number one, there should be fucking pushback to close down the country if that's being considered. Obviously, we would expect there to be somebody arguing, well, wait a minute, is this something we have to do? But that's besides the point. That's just logic, right? But now Fauci is going around saying that, he's positioning himself as, well, listen, I'm going to do what's right, because I'm a doctor and I know what's going on, but these guys weren't listening to me in the beginning. That's what the implication is by him saying there was pushback to close down the country, by him acknowledging or conceding, because that was the nature of the remark. It was a concession in the interview he was giving, where he was saying that, yeah, if we had closed down earlier, obviously there would have been less. And he tries to be diplomatic a lot of times, but if he cannot handle himself in a media capacity, whereby he does not sabotage or provide ammunition for the people who are attacking Trump and his administration, then they should fucking shut him the fuck down, right? So if you've ever listened to or watched my Loyalty Matrix series, there is one of the archetypes in the loyalty matrix is the traitor. Now, the traitor gets dealt with functionally the same way, right? For all intents and purposes, the traitor gets dealt with the same way. Mostly, if you ever have heard of my escalation, I mock you so I don't have to punish you. I punish you so I don't have to exile you. I exile you so I don't have to kill you. Like that escalation of regulation within a tribe is for the traitor. Because in the traitor, there are two subsets of individuals. There is the fool and the enemy. And the difference between the fool and the enemy is just intent. Is he doing it on purpose or is he doing it because he's a fucking idiot? But either way, if the absolute value of their actions is attacking the mission of the tribe, they're traitors. Right now, Fauci is conducting himself in a traitorous manner. I already called it, and I feel bad for my wife sometimes because she has to be my sounding board whether she likes it or not. And it had to be a week or two ago that I was saying that it's just a matter of time before Fauci's gone, because you saw him maintaining his individual identity. Which people argue, well, he shouldn't cave. Okay, you can have all those. All right, no problem. Let him do it. Not part of the fucking administration then, because he's there to do a job on a team. He's not an elected official. He's not somebody that people elected to go and tell us what to do. Nor should we ever have some expert telling us what to do, as if the context in which he has his expertise in is the only context of significance to the country. They want to say that we need to open up slowly. We need to make sure. I just listened to Como, the real fucking Fredo Como, the governor, talking about, we need to open slowly. We need to open, there's going to be, he implied and apparently said there was going to be another announcement. I heard the earlier one, but he said there was going to be another level of essential businesses that were going to be allowed to open. I will tell you right now, I'm saying this publicly, and I didn't plan on saying this, but I'm saying it anyway. As soon as non-essential businesses, and non-essential meaning any business that hasn't been labeled essential right now, we can get into whether or not all the businesses that are labeled essential now are actually essential, but I am mad at them, because if you have the ability to open up, you should absolutely open up. But as soon as other businesses are being opened, I'm opening my school. I don't give a fuck what the government says. If you're telling me that me, who runs a martial arts school, who, by the way, just came out, numbers are coming out that statistically the highest comorbidity of coronavirus, of COVID-19, is obesity. Well, I'm running a fucking exercise school, okay? If you think that a business that is actually invested in keeping people healthy, never mind all the bodegas that are selling the fucking 50-cent sodas and the 75 cents fucking, sugar in a fucking wrapper to all the fat diabetic kids in the fucking hoods, those guys are essential. But a business that actually invests itself in making people physically, mentally, and spiritually stronger, we're not essential. This is part of why everybody fucked up the society to begin with. Because we're thinking along the terms of the logic provided to us by experts, with these paranoid, incomplete contexts and missions that have never been established as being functional. Okay, well, you should keep your business closed. Why? Why do I have to keep my business closed, Mr. Government? Well, because the spread of the virus. Well, we don't even have nationwide testing. The level of testing, we don't know what we're doing to stop the spread anyway. Yeah, well, the numbers of people that are testing positive is going down. Well, that's not proof. That's not a metric that's going to tell us whether or not the actual spread is going down. That's limited to the amount of people that are actually getting tested, of which 20% are testing positive, right? Oh, well, the number of hospitalizations are down. It's still, what does that have to do with me opening up my business? Number of hospitalizations are down. There could be an argument that the people that were going to suffer from this, the apex, as he was, the governor of New York was touting, why he was stockpiling all the ventilators that he wound up never fucking needing, by the way. We're getting ready for this apex. Well, if all these things are going down, then it tells me that, well, the worst, he actually said that today, the worst of it, we've already passed the worst of it. We're past the worst of it, is what he said. The worst of it is behind us, is what he said. So why am I not opening my business? Oh, because we still are, what? We're worried? We're still worried about the people who are unhealthy, the people who are old? Why is there not a sentiment? Why is there not a campaign to put some sense into those people's fucking heads into staying in their fucking homes? Or beyond that, starting to invest in the path that's going to take them from going from unhealthy, as they've been their entire life, to actually putting themselves into the position where they don't have to fucking shit their pants every time there's a new fucking virus attacking fat, old, and sick people. Why is there no campaign to tell these people that? Why is the campaign to tell me, who's healthy, my wife, who's healthy, my 4 kids who are healthy, by the way, we all have to fucking eat, right? We all have to eat. Oh, you're getting the money. When are we getting the money? If I wasn't somebody who was invested in preparation in my life as a standard protocol, a standard operating fucking procedure. If I wasn't that person, I would have been out of food. I'd have been asking for food and money from people a week ago, 2 weeks ago. What about the single parents who are stuck in their home? The schools are closed, right? So their kids can't go anywhere. And if they're single parents and they're living check to check and they haven't gotten any government money, what are they supposed to do? Oh, well, there's a lot of these financial packages that are being given. I haven't gotten any money yet. By the way, keep every fucking cent you're going to give me. And don't fucking aggravate me if I open my school tomorrow. Like, I'll make that swap in a fucking heartbeat. But what about these other people? Oh, well, we're having all this money. It's sent to them. Well, who the fuck has gotten it? You know what people are doing? People are still, this is how black markets start. There are fucking loan sharks on the street that are putting money out, banking on people's, fucking welfare checks they're getting from, the surplus, whatever the fuck it's being called. You need to let people do what they want to do so long as they are not investing themselves in the demise of their fellow citizens and their fellow citizens' rights. By me doing something that may pose a risk for a vulnerable subset of citizenry, that does not say that I am forcing them to leave their fucking homes, nor am I forcing them inside their homes. But if you're telling me, if the low probability, which for all the metrics that are out there, the probability of healthy individuals negatively affecting somebody else is so low, it has to now be balanced with the cost of somebody like me, self-employed entrepreneur, a wife and 4 kids. Who the fuck is feeding my family? How about I feed my family and you get the fuck out of my way? Now, I'll tell you right now, they decide to open up other businesses, I'm opening my school. That's just how it's going to be. Am I going to get fined for this? Am I going to get arrested for this? We'll see. I'll keep you guys up to date. But I'm not letting the country tell me that because there is a statistically insignificant portion of our population that is vulnerable to this virus, I cannot work to feed my fucking family. It's not happening. Fine me, arrest me, do what you have to do. You talk about essential businesses, I'm the business that makes people fucking strong. I'm the type of business that tells fat people to lose some fucking weight. I'm the type of business that tells people who are walking around with their head down, acting like fucking victims, looking for handouts, that they're being weak, that they're capable of more. I put them into situations to prepare themselves for that. I convince people to be awesome even when they themselves don't want to be. Who's essential here? The fucking ghetto bodega? With the fucking tasty cakes and the beers and all this other just processed disgusting shit that's giving these kids fucking type 2 diabetes. You know how many kids walk into my school obese at fucking 6 years old? If you have a child who is fat, you are a fucking problem. You know who fixes you though? The essential fucking businesses do. Because I tell you, your kid's too fucking fat. But you're willing to get him on the mat? You're willing to make it work? We'll fucking get him through it. Because that's the other side of the things that people like me do in businesses like mine. What I would say the real essential businesses. We're the ones that don't quit on people. We tell you, if you show up, we will be there as long as you are. I've never quit on somebody that didn't first quit on themselves. But here's the catch-22. You got to show up. But so long as you put that fucking expectation there, as long as you tell them they have to be the ones to show up, they have to do the work to get there. As long as you keep that on them, you are incentivizing the pursuit of their own development. You are incentivizing a level of development in the individual that when comes time when a new virus shows up, they don't give a fuck and they're not scared because they've done everything in their power to prepare for it. Getting fired up, people. I'm getting fired up. I'd like to see what happens when this thing passes. I'd like to see, and take note of this right now. Take note of when this thing passes, because it's going to pass, because it's inevitable. It has to. At some point, America will pull its fucking head out of its ass and say, wait a minute. What are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, all right. All you old people, all you sick people, get in the fucking house. Stay there until they have a fucking, an effective fucking medical therapy for this. Until there's some sort of fucking regimen that can help you if you get sick, stay in your fucking house. By the way, everybody else, wash your hands and shit. Because that's what you should be doing to live in a first world fucking country. Right? But once we get past this, I'm very eager to see how many people are going to go right back to where they were. How many people, the people who are obese, the people who have never dedicated their life to paying attention to what kind of food they're eating, the people who are isolated, who when they're forced to isolate realize just how depressing isolation can be. How many of these people are going to sort of revert right back to that aquarium fish? Soon as the hand starts coming with the fucking flakes, how many people are going to look up and go, okay, everything's back to normal. Everything's back to normal. It's not scary anymore. Well, I'm not standing for it. I'm not standing for it. I would never expect people who run martial arts schools to act like I do. I can't expect that. You're not me. And that's, I don't mean that to be narcissistic or arrogant, but I know, there's a limit to the price you guys are willing to pay for being the person you claim to want to be. I also know that money is not my mission. I've consulted martial arts schools long enough to know that I am not the norm. But what I will say is that if you ask any martial arts school owner in the country, do you want to help your people? Do you want them to succeed? Do you want them to be stronger? Do you want them to climb their ladders of strength, the metaphor that I like using? I'd say the overwhelming majority of them, if just given that dichotomy of, would you want to help them or not, they would say absolutely. So I will put out there that those of you that want to start, I'd say May 1st is a great day to start opening the real essential businesses. I'll put it out there. I'll reach out to a couple of individual people and tell them about it. I don't expect anybody to do it. But the only thing I could share is the logic of it. How long are you going to tell the government to stop you from providing for your family, from feeding your kids? How long is the government allowed to tell you that you can't save the business that you might have spent the lion's share of your adult life building, that is on the brink of collapse? How long are you going to tell the government that you're not allowed to do that? Because 4% of the people who get this have some serious complications. 40% of the people worldwide who test positive for it have some sort of serious or critical complication. Is that what you're willing to sacrifice your business for? I saw a video, I think it was last week, by Dennis Prager. And it was a great video. He was talking about a bunch of things. One of the things he brought up was how we always sort of balance, risk versus, reward. And he cited the speed limits on streets. He's like, if the speed limit is 55 miles an hour and somebody gets into a car accident, there's no there's no group of people getting together and saying, well, we have to lower the speed limit down to 54, 53, 52, 45. There is no sort of minimum number of accidents that if a certain street has that number of accidents, they decide to shut that street down. too many people are dying there. Everything is about balance. Everything is about negotiating and mitigating risk. We coexist with risk every day of our lives. How could we be sure of that? Because one day we lose, right? The risk is always there because one day we all die. So there is no way to perfectly avoid risk forever. It's always going to be there. Obviously, there's more information coming out right now about the padding of the coronavirus numbers. Obviously, there are, if you look at the other day, I did a number on the statistics of overall deaths in the country. We're down over 50,000 deaths. It's a weird way to say it, but just bear with me. We're down over 50,000 deaths in February and March compared to the average over the last 3 years. About 570,000 died during the February, March months on average. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, we're under 520,000. So we could talk about, and currently, let me look at the map here. Total deaths in the U.S., 23,000. We're still up. We're up about 30,000 people right now. These are just the numbers. We're up 30,000 people. There are more people right now at this date than there were these same dates the last 3 years. Comparable to those people who are dying, or comparatively. So this epidemic, this pandemic, I've never cited, nor am I willing to say right now, nor do I even believe that that the virus isn't real, that people aren't dying while having it. It has yet to be proven to me that people are dying from it. I'm not saying that they aren't. I'm just saying that when you look at all of the different statistics that are being raised and how they're skewing the data that's being recorded, and how it's so easy to just look at why this would make sense. Like, why would people do that? Why would they pad these numbers? Oh, I don't know. Because it's the media? Because it's an election year? Why would China not give us the right numbers? Because it's a communist country looking to monopolize world power, as it's always been, or since Mao. Why are, Washington State gave a hospital back to the federal government? They were like, no, we're just playing. We don't need this hospital. I've spoken about many times, the training I've gotten in PSYOC, and one of the things that they shared with me was the de-escalation cycle, and how it makes sense. When a threat appears, you go big, and then you continue to track the threat, and you de-escalate. The example I used when I spoke about this last week was, if I have let's just say a shotgun, right? Joe Biden likes shotguns, right? So let's say I have a shotgun by the door, and I'm upstairs with my wife, and I hear, the window break. And I get up. Somebody, is downstairs, is what I'm thinking. The window broke. I grab the shotgun, I go down, and then I turn the lights on, and I see that something fell off the wall, and, it was like one of these chain reactions, and something, cracked the window. And I go, oh, all right, let me put the shotgun down, let me pick up the glass, and I go upstairs and I go back to sleep. But if I go down thinking, oh, there was probably a chain reaction that broke the window, let me go down and fix it. Then I go and somebody broke into my house. I can't go, oh, fuck, it's a robber. Hold on a second, let me go get my shotgun. That's not the way that fucking works. So the de-escalation cycle from PSYOC, prepares one to bring everything online that you need, that you have, and then de-escalate to what you need. So when this thing first popped off, and you're hearing 20% death rate out of China, and you're hearing all these crazy fucking numbers, yeah, it makes sense that you're like, you know what? Let me meat in the freezer. Let's get some ammo. Let's connect with the fucking tribe. Let's make plans. Let's do what we got to do. Let's tighten up our fucking schedules. Like I was all about it. Because that's what I do, right? That's what people who prepare do. But then it's like, okay, I'm continuing to pay attention. All right, the numbers aren't exactly what they seem. All right, the comorbidities is a pretty specific group of people. Okay, if you are a healthy 20-year-old, person in America, you have probably a greater chance of getting into a car accident than you do dying from COVID-19. But we're telling them that they can't go to work and they have to stay home too. Okay, we're really, really worried about, the people who are, of vulnerable communities. But for some reason, there was never a criteria for the essential workers. Like, we've never heard about any restrictions being placed on the specific vulnerable communities within our society. For some reason, that was never a prerequisite, right? The supermarket needs to stay open. Yes, they need to stay open because they're essential, but you need to give everybody who is of these vulnerable parties, you need to allow them to not be there. Or we're mandating that they're not there because we want to lower the death rate, right? We want to save lives. For some reason, that wasn't the case. But me, who runs a martial arts school where I actually get people healthy and empower them, I'm a risk. I'm a risk to society. If you're somebody who is unhealthy, then once this is over, like I'll say if you don't change your lifestyle, if you don't do what you have to do, then where is the argument that you're not one of the people that deserves to die? That you're not volunteering for it at that point? I know a lot of people, have gotten scared into, holy shit, this is real. Like, yeah, this is real. This is fucking real. When you look at, what are some of the other ways that, or reasons why these things would be leveraged the way they are? Like, why is this talk about a vaccine becoming so prominent? Why is this now the thing that people want to sort of leverage as to the only saving grace in this situation is the vaccine? As far as I know, it's going to take over a year to get a vaccine that's viable, according to their viability criteria. I heard, I think it was Fauci, last week or something, say that the way that we finally got a hold of the flu was the vaccine. I beg to differ, my friend. I beg to differ. I'm going to look up right now. Efficacy of the flu vaccine. So it's February 20th, and this is on the CDC site. Just Google this. Today, CDC published new interim flu vaccine effectiveness estimates for the 2019-2020 flu season. So far this season, flu vaccines are reducing doctor visits for flu illness by almost half, 45%. This is consistent with estimates of flu vaccine effectiveness from previous flu seasons that range from 40 to 60% when flu vaccine viruses were similar to circulating influenza viruses. Vaccination is providing substantial protection, 55% for children who have been particularly hit hard by the flu this season. These estimates are available, blah, 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 blah. So right now, 45% efficacy is what they're touting. My son had the flu. My eldest son had the flu in January. He got it a few days after our January 1st training ritual, which is pretty intense. And he got the flu maybe 4 or 5 days after that. He was fucked up for a good week. And eventually I took him to the doctor. And basically just wanted to, he was starting to get he's 13. And sometimes, you have a 13-year-old that is super smart. He's smarter than, he's smarter than he should be. And with great intellect comes great responsibility because he starts looking up symptoms and things that they could possibly be. So our doctor's right up the road, so I made an appointment to go there. And I said, I think he has the flu. Doctor says, yeah, probably. Let's give him a test. And the doctor tells me that he just got over the flu himself. And I asked him, oh, you did? I said, well, did you take anything for it? He went, no. That's doctor's mid-50s, late 50s. And my son tested positive for the flu. Never took anything, but just told him, like, listen, you're fine. Everything's fine. It was great that the doctor was just getting over it for his, sense of perspective, my son's. But we knew that he had the flu then. He passed it around a little bit in January. Maybe about 3 weeks ago, my entire house was sick. Who knows? Might have been fucking coronavirus passing through the house. But everybody except me saw symptoms and soreness, sleeping 18 hours a day, a little bit of a cough, a headache, like might have passed through my house. I don't know. I felt fucking great. Still feel great. But not everybody gets as fired up as I fucking do. All right, let me see what the fuck is going on. I don't know. There's so many comments here. It's one of the things I hate about these Facebook videos is that as soon as I start getting on a roll, I just lose complete track of who's putting questions and shit like that. All right. Rockstar! Let's read Rockstar's comment. Rockstar's one of my favorite people. Facts. Your articulation is powerful and incredible. He writes like he's writing a rap song, by the way. I've been telling people that obesity is the greatest risk factor, but they labeled Trumpish. They told me that my insensitivity is my problem. Preach on. Adam says, what's up, Adam? He says, some people love their cognitive dissonance without even knowing it. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to live forever, says Ricardo. That's how some people act. Ricardo says, our death numbers should be down because no one is fucking doing anything. All the dumb shit that normally kills Americans is being mitigated. Yeah, that's what happens. Brian Simmons. Oh, man, Brian Simmons in the house. Forced vaccination and Mark of the Beast. All right, well, you're going to rock Dolo on the Mark of the Beast narrative for now. Like, keep getting after it. But forced vaccination, yeah, there are some people. This isn't the first time people brought this up. People should be vaccinated. They should be. I should be forced to put these fucking foreign subjects in my body. So I, too, can strive to have a 45% efficacy rating for a fucking flu vaccine. How about you go fuck yourself? All right? How about you go fuck yourself? Fucking rule followers. That's what rule followers do. Rule followers, I think, right now, my best model for understanding the rule follower archetype is labeling them up against the prep zone and then saying that the mission by which they are trying to be prepared for is the specific application that they're commenting on, right? So if you're somebody who is a doctor, right? The majority of people who are doctors are going to say, you know what? Here are the numbers, and the numbers don't lie, and these are the numbers, and this is what we should do because the numbers say this. And, how many times, I have a lot of jiu-jitsu MMA people, on my feed. How many times either you, yourself, or somebody somebody you work with, one of your students, has gotten advice from a doctor where the doctor says, you will never train again. Training? That fighting stuff? That karate jitsu? That's done. That's done. How many times have we heard that? I always call it malpractice advice. They go, you know what? They're thinking, I'm going to give this guy advice that's super safe, that just, it's super conservative. So chances are I'm not sort of like redlining his progress or recovery to where he could potentially injure himself again, then I get sued, right? I know there's a lot of that. But I think inherent in the type of individual that becomes a doctor, overwhelmingly, I would say, are the people who just look for the data. I want to follow the data. I need the data. What does the data say, There's that great episode of The Office where the fucking nut job, I think it's Dwight, is following the GPS, and he has everyone in the car. And the GPS is telling him to go straight, and he's like driving into a lake, and they're all yelling at him, and he's going, but the GPS says go straight, and he's driving into a lake. Those are the rule followers. The dysfunction of their behavior could be right in front of them. They're oblivious to it because they have the numbers. They operate best when their understanding of reality is a closed set of information. Right? What do we call those types of people? Know-it-alls, right? What does that mean when we say, this guy's a fucking know-it-all. He knows everything. Well, it means that somebody's operating as if Everything in reality is a set of information that they are completely, in control of. It's dysfunctional. It's narcissistic. It's ignorant. It's limited. You're a cog in a machine at that point, right? That's who you are. You're like a hammer that somebody picks up. It's like, okay, I gotta drive a nail into this piece of wood. Where's my hammer? It's like, if I want to find out a statistic, or, okay, these are the symptoms, what could it be? It's like opening up a book. Well, the doctors are fucking books. They tell you what the other people told them to tell you. Like, that's what they do. Have you ever heard the phrase thinking outside the box? Well, what is the box in that metaphor? Thinking outside. The box is the closed set of information that the overwhelming majority of people deal with. And a lot of times, the information that winds up in the box is just the information that's left after some party monopolizes the narrative. One of the things that people don't value, I think, highly enough, significantly enough, is the effect that just exposure to information has on their worldview. And not only consciously, but subconsciously, unconsciously, how being exposed to information desensitizes you, normalizes certain things, encourages, incentivizes things like confirmation bias. One of the fallacies you'll see propagated all over the place right now are the false dichotomies. All right? And these are the people that want to monopolize the narratives. They don't want to explain or have a conversation. They want to just give people orders. They want to say, no, this is the information, here it is. And if you don't want it, you're an anti-vaxxer. You're one of those conspiracy nuts. The other day I shared a video clip of, it was the senator that I had spoken about, Jensen from Minnesota, talking about the criteria that he had gotten in written form from the hospital that he was working at, saying, well, if you strongly suspect that this person's death was connected to, COVID-19, you could put, COVID-19 as a cause of death. And he's bringing that up, that's a problem when you're asking, like, it's not scientific, number one, right? It's like, he died from COVID-19. Well, we should be able to say that we had a test for that and that he tested positive for that. And therefore, this is why that is. And he was bringing that up. And then the video that I shared went to Fauci being asked about, what do you say to those people that are saying that these numbers are being padded because the criteria isn't consistent, whatever it was. And he basically said something like, don't pay attention to the conspiracy theorists. Okay. Fucking sitting senator in the fucking United States government. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's a doctor, just like Fauci. You have these people that, when it first came out about hydroxychloroquine, I'm not a fucking doctor, right? I don't know how fucking effective it is, but I think it's just worth noticing that everybody, you look at the media that was just trying so hard to get after Trump. And I don't want to reduce my position to fuck those anti-Trumpers, because it's not that, right? But you have to acknowledge that when you look at how most media outlets portray the steps that the president is taking in this pretty much unprecedented scenario, all they're trying to do is undermine not only his abilities, but his intentions. Trading dollars for lives was one fucking headline that I read. It's like, no, this is lives for lives. I happen to be of the position that Trump knew at some point eventually it would be trading lives for lives. He knew that would be the case. Ay, ay, ay. All right, my man Irish brought up a good point, and this is something I didn't really get to research. I saw it a couple times. Maybe you guys could share some insight. Some states are stopping stores from selling seeds to grow fruit and vegetables. What the fuck is that about? I saw that, and I admit I didn't have enough time to invest in researching it, but I don't know what the hell's going on. All right, I'm still trying to get these fucking comments. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. What's up, Artie? What's up, Arlene? Robbie D'Onofrio, what's going on, brother man? All right, so Ricardo writes here, the media will always portray everything he does as negative because they're the megaphone of the deep state. And you know what? There's, that conversation could be, continued down that line, and there's a lot of information to support it. I think at this point, I think we need to, and I'm not saying this for any one individual, but where I want to invest my energy is in getting us back to being functional. Right now, there's a conversation that's going on amongst the powers that be to decide whether or not we as citizens are allowed to work to provide for our families. They wanted to send out money to help everybody. I haven't seen anything. What has it been, a fucking month? How do you think people are coping with this? It's a pretty elitist perspective to have, to think that you could just close down a country for a month and nobody's going to suffer. Nobody's going to go without eating. Nobody's going to rob, beg, borrow, steal, that whole thing to try and, maintain their ability to eat and survive. Like, why is that not on the forefront of these people's minds? Oh, we're going to give them money. We're going to give all these people all this money to help. Still don't have any money. If I don't have it, I'm pretty sure a lot of other people don't have it. People that need it a lot more than I do. Brian Wilton, what's up, my man, Brian? There was a friend of mine from South Africa on my show last night, and he said that cigarettes and alcohol have been outlawed because of the corona. Now, I've said it before. This is a country, and not even talking about around the world, but in our country, I could ride a motorcycle, I could hang glide, I could jump out of an airplane with a parachute, I could bungee jump, I could climb a mountain face. I could do a whole slew of things that statistically are dangerous. It's my fucking life. When you now look at these people that... Because here's another thing, and I spoke about this in a conversation I had privately. I don't think I brought it up here. But this is another application of the victim narrative, right? So these vulnerable parties are the victims. They're the ones that we all have to take care of. Just like every other victimized narrative, every other victimized category of people, group or label of people, has leveraged that victimization into garnering some form of control to where it's become a legitimate currency of influence in our society these days. Much the same way, we have individuals now who are not even in a position where they can advocate for themselves, but they are being advocated for by proxy by a bunch of government figures who are saying we're going to do everything to help these people because they need it. These people never claimed to want it, but we have all these other people. I mean, when you look at it doesn't take much. There's not even one instance I could cite that stands out. The number of cases of people, there's two things that people are catching a lot of right now. Number one, a lot of empty hospitals. A little bit of curious, by the way. A lot of empty fucking hospitals. If this is a pandemic, and I get it, yeah, well, you know what, a lot of the other, reasons for being in a hospital aren't there because nobody's going outside because of this control. But yeah, but we were going to be overrun. Remember, the whole thing was flatten the curve so don't get overrun. A lot of empty hospitals. Are we still worried about getting overrun? If we're not, why are we still flattening the curve? I digress. The other type of video you see are the videos of people whose rights are being taken away and or being attacked by their fellow citizens on just a poor understanding of the metrics that are available to everybody. People looking to call the police. This guy doesn't have a mask on. If I was writing a work of fiction, and there was a scenario by which individuals are going around looking to call government agents to rat on their fellow citizens for not wearing masks, there would be consequences for those people. The overwhelming majority of people would not even contract this, statistically speaking. Of the people that contract it, the overwhelming majority of people will not let alone just not die, they won't even see serious consequence. The overwhelming majority of people. Right now, and I'll bring this up again, worldometers.info, 96% of the people who are currently affected are in what they cite as having a mild condition. 4% are serious or critical. There's a conversation going on now that the protocols that were being followed in New York City specifically were actually harming more patients than helping them by destroying people's lungs and never really addressing the actual thing they which was oxygen. And the ventilators were at a setting that were doing the manual work, but they didn't need the manual work. They actually needed the oxygen, not the muscular, breathing cycle assistance, and more harm was done than good. Statistically, the people that were dying from people on ventilators in New York City were dying disproportionately to the rest of the country. They wanted to know why. It wasn't just that there were more people, it was the probability that they were talking about, and they were talking about the settings. There's that one doctor I spoke about in the last video that made one video that a lot of other doctors now are supporting the narrative that we're not treating this thing properly. We're treating it as if their lungs are going to stop working, but it's actually their inability to process oxygen that is being affected, and that's the thing that needs to be addressed primarily. So my point is, even the people who are suffering from this most significantly, it is a low percentage of the population. The choices that our government is making right now to try and control and restrict our ability to provide for ourselves at some point needs to be rejected. I told you, May 1st, I know they're going to open up the country in some way or fashion. I know they're gonna put criteria out there for how we're supposed to open. But I'm making a promise to you right now, and I say that knowing full well there may be consequences for me legally. May 1st, I'm opening up my school. If any other business is allowed to open on May 1st, I'm opening up my school. Because if there's an argument to be had, I'm willing to have it. But when I look at my school, the school that does nothing but help people, like I said before, physically, mentally, spiritually, to become more resilient, to become less what Taleb would call anti-fragile. I'm as an essential a business as you're going to find nowadays. If any other business is open and it's basically, they're going to have an argument to support whatever position or decisions they make, but ultimately it's going to be a bunch of politicians deciding who gets to make a living and who gets to stay closed and still wait for government money to feed their families. If they open the country in any way, shape, or form, May 1st, the Jungle Gym in the Bronx will be open. And there'll be people that'll report me, I'm sure. There'll be people that'll look to get me in trouble. And okay, game on. I invite anybody who has a martial arts school, anybody that has a business, to do the same thing. May 1st, if they open the country in any way, shape, or form, I'm opening my business. Now, they may very well say, well, listen, business can open, but here's the criteria you got to follow. And I'll see if I agree with that criteria. But if we're talking about essential businesses, you're not going to find a more essential business right now than a business that makes people physically stronger, mentally stronger, spiritually stronger, keeps people connected and not isolated. Game on. That's my position. I don't want the government thinking that I'm okay with them providing for my family. Haven't seen a dime. You guys aren't good at it, government people. They're not good at it. I know they're not good at it. I don't need you to be good at it. I just need you to leave me the fuck alone and let me and my healthy friends do what the fuck we want to do. The money that you're giving me, the money that you're giving people like me, how about you just get out of our fucking way, let us continue to make a living, and you take that money and you use it to provide food and support for the actual vulnerable fucking sets and groups of people. The people that statistically are shown to be more vulnerable to this virus, who opt for assistance, let those people have access to these resources. Get the fuck out of our way. I'm sure I could sit here and say, yeah, well, nobody should get anything, but that's just not our reality. How many people, they get the fucking EBT cards filled, then they get in their, $60,000 car and drive, like, I don't fucking feel like fighting that battle right now. I don't give a shit about that. All I'm saying is get the fuck out of my way. Just get the fuck out of my way. Let me and my healthy, strong friends do what the fuck we were doing before any of you guys got in our fucking business with this fucking nonsense about everybody needs to fucking be prepared for the sky to fall. And all these rule-following cunts going, yeah, but you don't even know. I had that other fucking jack-off last week. Chris Moriarty. Fucking cunt. I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? If I need a fucking Band-Aid or some antibiotics, I'll call you, you fucking twat. It's not fair. I blocked him. He's not saying this. It's not fair. I can't keep going. But that's what you get from the rule followers. That's what you get from the rule followers. From the rule followers, you get the position that, well, whatever the book tells me to do, that's what I'm going to do. That's what should be done. That's what everybody should be focused on. You got to follow the numbers, the data. You got to follow the data. The fuck out of here. Want to know what the data is? I am one independent motherfucker. People get me aggravated. I don't know. You guys want to talk about anything else? I know you guys have been putting all these damn comments here. I can't fucking see them. Very aggravating, I admit. Yeah, the whole Fire Fauci thing, I think it's just a matter of time. I called it a couple weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago, I said this guy's already starting to talk nonsense. You guys ever see the scene in The Godfather where Michael goes out to Vegas and he's sitting there and Fredo talks out against him? And after he has the conversation, he looks at Fredo and he goes, don't ever go against the family. Don't ever go against the family. Well, there's a reason for that. Right now, the Trump administration is trying to do a job. Obviously, we all know that there is an argument, a battle being fought, being waged behind the scenes between the rule-following doctors who have value. Don't get me wrong. They have value. But the people that are on the economy side, they're like, all right, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? Because, by the way, you look at diseases of despair, things like crime, suicide, drug abuse, right? Domestic abuse, child abuse. All these things are real things. And all of them happen to coincide with the type of society that we are designing by keeping everything closed. Beyond that, we could say, well, every time there's a virus, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're closing everything down, waiting for our government checks. Every time there's a virus? Derek, what's up, Derek? He says, did Moriarty say something like July 4th should be a good time to... I don't know what the fuck he said. I know he's a fucking cunt. You know, he would make comments every once in a while on threads of mine, regarding this and regarding other things too. Like, he's been riding my fucking, my page for a while. And whenever I would reply to him, he would never respond. So my whole thing is, he can go fuck himself. Lou Tapia, good point, but we need to wait a little longer. 2,000 people during a day is real. Real to what? Let me look up. Hold on a second. How many people die in the U.S. every day? Why can't they just give me a fucking answer? What is this for? Is this 2019? 2017. Okay, 2017. How many people died? 2.8 million people died. Is that what you're talking about? 1,000 in New Jersey and New York only. Okay, Lou. And I'm not getting after you now, Lou, but it's gonna feel like it's definitely gonna sound like I'm getting after you, but I'm not getting after you. That is complete bullshit. Okay? And it's complete bullshit for a couple of different reasons. Number one, people die all the time. How many people die? And I just shared this the other day. Let me go to it right now. This isn't working. All right, so let's talk about this for a second. And this is why I shared it. Okay, so leading causes of death, and this is in New York, right? In 2017. For a year, 44,000 from heart disease, 34,000 from cancer, 7,600 from accidents, 7,200 from chronic lower respiratory diseases, 6,000 for stroke. Thousands of people dying per day is something that we are already used to. Now, if you tell me that 1,000 people are dying from COVID-19 a day, I would say, okay, a couple different ways you could deal with that. Number one, we already know that the numbers, the trends of deaths per day is going down. We know that people that are being ventilated now or that have been ventilated during the last 2 weeks, the overwhelming majority of them, statistically speaking, are not going to make it. So we already know that we have a bunch of, it's kind of a fucking, rude way of putting it, but we have a lot of deaths in the oven right now, right? Just trying to describe the timeline of it. So when we now start getting to how much are we supposed to sacrifice in order to not have 1,000 people. Well, the people that are already getting this are already going, people that have this and are going to die are already going to die, right? So it is not a case of people like getting it and dying in the same day. So as we see these numbers go, climb, spike, and then start to taper off, well, that's a reflection of this running its course. But if these numbers aren't continuously climbing, that means that there's a plateau and eventually a decline. And it's that apex that everybody's been talking about. It became the apex after flattening the curve. It was shown to be something that was too easily acquired, right? It was too attainable. Because you'll all remember in the beginning, it was about flattening the curve. It was about making sure we can keep the numbers down so that the health system doesn't collapse. Well, you know what? We did that pretty fucking quickly, right? We did that pretty quickly. A lot of empty hospitals right now. There's articles about nurses and doctors getting laid off. Pretty fucking easily done. So then it became, well, the apex. We're preparing for the apex, the almighty apex. It's starting to look like the apex already happened. Weeks prior to to when they anticipated it happening. We look at the models of deaths. Started off 1 to 2.2 million people could potentially die. Today, I was listening to Como. Oh, I wanted to throw something at my fucking television. And he was saying, sure, the numbers were going down. I mean, the models were wrong. Then he goes, no, you can't call them wrong. They were high. But why they were high? They were telling us what would happen if nobody did anything. They were warning us what could happen. No, that's not what they were fucking saying. Because all of those models included with it if we were going to socially distance and do all the shit that we were doing. The models were still, sometimes by a factor of 30, higher than what actually the reality wound up revealing. So 1,000 people a day, like, how much am I willing to sacrifice for that right now? Because the people that already have it, that are on ventilators or about to be on ventilators, I don't have a hand in that. But as we continue to sabotage the country's ability to provide for itself, what is the cost? Like 1,000. So can we open at 800 a day? 500 a day? It starts to become just somebody making an emotional decision on a number. Like 1,000 people a day. Let me look at New York coronavirus statistics. New cases. I'm looking this up right now. And like I said, Lou, I'm not going after you. This is just a very common point, a common position. Just give me statistics, motherfucker. Data. Okay, data. Okay, this is off nyc.gov. As of April 13th, 106,813 cases, 29,335 of those cases hospitalized. So nationally, it's 20%. If you have if you get tested, there's a 20% chance you will test positive from all the tests and all of the positive test results so far in the country. And that was off the Johns Hopkins site that a lot of people are familiar with these days. So now New York, out of the 106,813 cases, 29,335 were hospitalized. So let's look at the percentage. So 29,335 divided by 106,813 equals. So 27% of the people who tested positive had to be hospitalized. And then, right now, 6,182, and that is as of April 13th, 1 p.m. This is on nyc.gov. So let's do 6,182 divided by 2,9,335. And that gives you 20%. So 29% of the people who have it get hospitalized. Of those people who are hospitalized, 21% die. Right? Those are our statistics right now. So let's look at 6,182 divided by 106,813. So right now, if you get it in New York City, according to statistics, there is a 5% chance of death, right? So a 5% case fatality rate in New York, if you get it. So now, Let's do population of New York. 8.4 million people, right? So let's do, obviously these numbers are in flux, as we call them, but this gives us just a perspective, right? So 106,813, we'll divide that by 8.4 million. Right, so that is 1% of the people. All right, so 1% of the people, 1.2%. 1.2% of New York has, I'm just looking at the 106,813 cases. So cases versus total population of New York, 1.2% of New York has been tested to have it, right? So now let's do 6,182 divided by 8.4 million. Yeah, that is like, it's really fucking long. So right now, the percentage, when they do like that E/4, I know those numbers is exponential, zeros, but I don't know exactly what that looks like in my head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 6,182. Somebody probably did that here. All right, there you go. There's Ricardo, like fucking helping me here. So whatever that fucking number is right there, that's the percentage of New York population that has died from the coronavirus. Now, it is worth saying, and I think it is worth saying, because people like, I have my boy Jito, like, passed away. I loved Jito. This is somebody that I've known since he was probably 8 years old. Died while testing positive for coronavirus. So this is not, let me look over, look and undervalue the life of the individuals that were lost. But that's not the conversation we're having, because if we have that conversation, we have to have that conversation about anybody that dies anyway, don't we? Isn't that the same conversation? And we understand how that's not sustainable in terms of creating policy. If you guys remember, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, there was that young kid in the Bronx that got stabbed to death by a bunch of kids on the block, and it was captured by like a security camera outside of a bodega. And there was an incredible like outcry over this young kid's death. And the reason there was an outcry over this kid's death is because people got to see it. They got to see it. My position from the beginning was, listen, this kid, Junior, it was Junior something. My position was, it's tragic that this young boy died. You find out it was a case of, it was a false identity and or mistaken identity, whatever it was that, he wound up getting wrapped up in, and he got stabbed to death and people were losing their minds. I get it. But why was the outcry there? The outcry wasn't because of the facts of the case. The outcry was over everybody's emotional reaction to seeing it. My position from the beginning was, listen, yeah, it's tragic and all that, but you guys know that every time somebody is shot or stabbed to death, it looks like that, right? Like every time it looks like that. Why isn't there at least a consistent reaction? And that's what we're getting right now. You're getting into a position where people are emotionally reacting to the individual lives are being lost. I cannot sit here, and nor will I, do I want to sit here and argue against people talking about the tragedy of people losing their lives to this. I will never argue against that. But that's not the discussion that we're having right now. The discussion we're having is the greater context of how do we stay functional as a society. People lose their lives for a whole plethora of reasons. Every day, every year, a million different ways, right? Oh, man, that might be not accurate, a million different ways. A lot of different ways people die, right? Every single one of those people that dies, in a way that, we would consider not to be natural, there's a level of tragedy to it, I guess, right? Like, I would concede that every time. There's people dying right now on the other side of the world that you people don't give two fucks about. Why? Because we run out of fucks before we get to them. If we gave some of our fucks to everybody that died, from the people closest to us all the way out, we run out of fucks long before we get to the other side of the planet. Yet, that person on the other side of the planet that's dying right now has a whole group of people around them crying, whose lives are forever changed and altered because this person died. But to us, there are just different conversations we're having at different levels of context. Right now, the conversation that I'm pushing is, what are we willing to pay in order to stop the spread of a virus that statistically is settling into the same level of risk of other threats that we have already built the ability to coexist with? We have already learned how to mitigate risk in other ways. And then you can layer on top of that, what role does the government have in deciding how we're supposed to mitigate this risk? Where does their authority end? When does it begin to impede on an individual citizen's ability to enact or execute or enjoy his rights as protected by the Constitution and Bill of Rights? When does one start getting in the way of the other? Because I'll remind you, this is the country where I can get a ticket for not having my seatbelt on Monday, but on Tuesday ride a motorcycle around and be okay, so long as I pay all the fees and the charges that I have for riding a motorcycle. It's hypocrisy. What leads to that hypocrisy? When people stop holding themselves accountable for their own liabilities and risk management, and they start putting it on the government somehow to protect us from ourselves. It is not the government's role to protect us from ourselves. I could ride a motorcycle. I can go hang gliding. I can go skydiving. I can go rock climbing. I could go bungee jumping. I could swim, in the middle of the fucking ocean. I could do all these different things. All of these things are risky. I fought fucking MMA professionally, for God's sake. Like, I am about living according to my own fucking path. I don't need the government to protect me from myself. Why? Because at some point it's somebody making a decision from some centralized perspective that does nothing to honor the rights of the individual. I don't want you to do this. Why not? Because I know best what's for you. If you guys remember John McCain calling MMA human cockfighting. How far we've come, right? Shout out to Dana White for getting bitched by Disney. Disgusting. Dana White blew it. A little bit of a tangent. I think if he was holding fights this weekend, I think it would have been an amazing thing. For a lot of the people that need to be reminded that we're men, that we're warriors, that there is a warrior class. There's at least a warrior role. There's a warrior function. There's a warrior job to do. What is the warrior supposed to do? Put himself between the threat and the tribe. That's what warriors are tasked with doing. Right now, the government is saying we don't need warriors. We're just going to hide. We're going to protect ourselves. Don't worry. We're not going to run out of the money we took from you. I digress. All right, I'm going to get off, but I'm going to summarize. It seems to me, and I've been watching Trump's talks every day, it seems to me that the language behind the scenes is starting to get towards, they're going to make some sort of an opening either by the end of this month or May 1st. My declaration right now publicly is if any other businesses are given permission to open on May 1st, my martial arts school is opening. If there's an argument to be had for the validity of me being as an essential business, I'm willing to have it. But I am not allowing, if the government's going to allow anybody else to open, I'm opening. I don't need the government providing for my wife and my children. I don't need the government paying my bills for me. I don't need the government doing any of that for me. I'll do it myself. Just get the fuck out of my way and let me and my healthy, strong warrior friends do what we do. All right? So if there are other businesses out there, especially ones in New York City, that want to contact me privately so we can coordinate something together on May 1st, open up and get back to what we're supposed to be doing, which is making our members and our communities stronger mentally, physically, and spiritually, do that. And we will absolutely organize this effort together. But I don't expect anybody to do it. I welcome anybody that wants to connect me. You know, anybody that, by the way, if there's ever been any jiu-jitsu politics or MMA politics, please just throw it in the garbage where it belongs. We're talking about things that actually matter, right? Providing for our families, providing for our children, going out and maintaining the tribes that some of us have dedicated the lion's share of our lives towards building and maintaining. Not allowing those legacies to fall by the wayside based on a disconnected, centralized decision that's being made by a politician. Or, even worse, some other unelected expert. If you want to reach out to me so we can organize this, you know, you are more than welcome to do so. And we will find a way to leverage this as best we can. But I'm willing to stand by myself on this. May 1st, I'm going to, if any other business is allowed to be open, the Jungle Gym is going to be opening in the Bronx. And probably New Rochelle. So I'll just put that out there. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to get at me privately through the message here. Or if you have my cell phone or email, you can do that too. But I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you all. And I'll talk to you guys soon. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.